Actually, before we go to do the export, I'm just going to pause the video and add a few extra little features, and then I'll quickly go over what I did. Okay, so the first thing I did was I added a swap part for the hand so that I can have the hand facing the other way. This is the top of the hand, and that way when he walks and his hand goes back and forth, it's not going to look strange, whereas if we use that hand, his hand's facing the wrong way. The other thing I did was I added some facial expressions, a smile part that goes over top. So that's all it is this little piece on top of the head. Turn that off, and then you can swap the heads. So this is a angry head. You can change it to an evil grin. Then I have upset and a big smile, which actually has to be placed on top of one of the heads. And also I have blinking. And if you combine that in your animation with half closed, make him look a little angry. Big smile will go over top of this one. Regular smile doesn't. That's just for the regular head. Because when you have an open mouth expression, you have to change the jawline because the jaw goes down. One other thing I did that's important to note was I went to the head layer and I selected inside these eyes and cut and paste onto its own layer this shine layer. So now the shine layer goes above the left and right eye, and then the other eye expressions can go over top of that, because normally this would be attached to the head. So then if the eyes are closing, the shine goes over top of the eyes. So that's why I took that out. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is make sure we have all the parts we want for this character. If we ever have to add any later, it could be kind of a pain because you have to add it into the image in the rectangle, set up the pivot, and you might have to re-edit the pivots if everything got rearranged, unless you add it into the texture manually and add it into the TXT manually. So just to save you the extra trouble, it's best to make sure you have all the parts that you want. So the first thing we'll do is we'll save this as a different file, and the next thing we'll do is we'll make visible every layer that we want to export and make sure they're all named the way you want them named. Everything in the head looks good. This head folder I'm going to delete. Group and contents, because if you leave any of this stuff that's not going to be visible behind in this copy of the file, it will slow down the export process. I'm just making sure that everything I want is visible, and I don't want extra index numbers for the folders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these using shift and I'm going to pull them out of the folder and then delete the folder, and I'll do that for each one. If you don't care about the extra index numbers on each name, then you don't have to worry about this part. I'm just doing this because if, for example, I had something like tubes and I wanted to be able to identify it by name or flag it when it's loading, when it sees tubes, to flag it as something, or actually I'd put a symbol in front of this or put a symbol on the end or something like exclamation mark, and then when it sees that particular thing, it would be programmed to know that that's something that has to be additive blended. I don't have anything on this character that I want to additive blend, so that's if you had a character where there's only certain parts that would be additive blended, and you could even do that manually in the way you've programmed it. So I'm going to save this file. Okay, next important step is to make sure we resize the character so he's not taking up a whole lot of space. Go to image size. I would recommend somewhere between 300 to 800 in size. I'm going to go with 500. 500 is a pretty good size for setting up the skeleton in that. Let's save this file again. Actually, we should probably save it as a new one. We'll call the setup scaled. Then depending on your software, you'd use a plugin or some script. In Photoshop, you can go to scripts for export layers to files. You'd think this would be an export, but it's in scripts because it's a script. You may have to make a new folder, or if you've already made it, then just select the folder you want it to go in, provide a prefix. I provide the prefix alien, and click run. And then you can go grab yourself a cup of coffee or something until it's done. Okay, export layers to files was successful. Let's go to that folder, and here we can see all the images in that layer. And the next thing we'll do is we'll run a program you can get off the internet called Sprite Sheet Packer. The Sprite Sheet Packer I'm using is the one by Nick Gravelin. This is the website where the project's migrated to, and you can also get it off of here. We'll run Sprite Sheet Packer, and we'll go to our folder, click on the first one, Control A to select all of them, and click Open. Then you need to select a image file. We're just going to call it Alien. Save. Map file type, TXT. You can also do XML. This uses TXT though, and MeoMotion uses TXT. You can't use XML yet. So that should be good. Build sprite sheet. Done. Let's take a look at it. So just put this together, and this is our TXT that holds all the rectangles for the image. These are the indices here. So now we can start a project in MeoMotion. We'll click Load Sprite Sheet, click on alien.png, it'll know which TXT to look up. And then we can begin to place our pivots. This will be somewhere around in the neck. We want these to be pretty close, so I'll put it right by the mouth there. It is possible to come back and adjust these later if you absolutely have to. So then you can go ahead and start dragging out parts of the character into the scene. We'll grab the standard head first. Hit Shift up to bring it all the way to the front with the eyes in. This has to go back. And you can make sure you're selecting the right thing by checking to see if there's a green rectangle around it. If you are having trouble picking the correct part, you can use this pick part in the bottom left-hand corner, and then just select it like that, and then you'll only move around and grab that one piece until you hit done. Hit Shift up to bring the eye to the very front, and then just hit down. Same with this one, Shift up, down. I may add some features later where you can load in the original image and then you can compare it, either have it behind it or beside it. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to add a feature so that it tells you the name of the part when you grab it. Over here on the right hand side, it actually tells you the depth of the current part. So this is 13, this is 1, this is 3, but having the name there would be handy too, so I'm going to do that. I'm just going to hit Shift down, down. Not too sure where this was. Oh, this is probably the wrong part here. Now it's starting to make more sense. That's where having the name visible would help, so I'm going to do that for sure. Let's put the head in, Shift down to push it back all the way. You'll notice these ears are kind of the way the art was originally done. They're not really pointing in the same direction, which is okay, but if you do want them to start off so that their initial rotation is a little different, you can just use the middle mouse scroll wheel to modify the rotation. If you thought this side was too small or something, you can hold down right click and modify the scale that way. Control Z to undo. We'll go ahead and run MeoMotion. Click Load Sprite Sheet to start a new project. And then we can start setting the pivots where it rotates around. So his neck would be around here. And we can use Magnify if we're having trouble seeing where we're placing the pivot. And if you want to get pixel perfect pivot positioning, you can hold down the left click and use the arrow keys to get the exact position that you want, and then click. Another tip too is you can put a dot on some of the underlying parts to pre-mark where you'd like the pivots in your graphics program if you want. Let's see, we got pivots here. These ones we're not worried about. Anything that isn't going to do a lot of rotational animation, we're not really worried about where we put the pivot. This would have to be in the hips. This would be the root bone. Go back a bit, about there. This would be shoulder. And if you're wondering what each piece is, you can look in the top right-hand corner and you can actually see the name of the piece that you're working on. I think we have everything that we want to rotate with pivots set. Oh, we missed this hand here. Pivots are set in the appropriate locations. Remember, once you start animating, you don't want to go back and change the pivots because that's going to change the offsets for all your keyframes. So your keyframes might get messed up and then you'd have to adjust them all. So we'll click Done. It's also possible you may have to reconnect or redo certain bone connections if you change the pivots. So we'll arrange the character first. We can test out the rotations in here using the middle mouse button, the scroll wheel. We'll place the head, Shift up to pull it forward. There's instructions down here. Shift up pulls it forward, Shift down pushes it back, and if you just hit up and down once, it changes the depth layer. It shows in the top right hand side what depth it's at. So this is all the way to the front, and if I keep hitting down, it's trying to go back. Let's do this part of the head first. And if you want to reference, you can import a background. You can also do this in the animation editor and open up a copy of the original art. Hold left click and drag, you move it. If you hold right click and drag, you can scale it. With Shift, it's uniform scaling. First you have to click Done. Grab the whites of the eyes, Shift up and then back a few times. Hold left click and arrows to kind of position more precisely. We want this one kind of in between these layers. Same with this one. Shift up and then drag it back until it's under that one, and then we can put it in place. Like I said, if you're having trouble picking the part, click Pick Part. Done. We'll put the shine in now, bring it all the way to the front, and we could put it back to, so it's at depth 3, that way we can put these over top. So bring that all the way forward, back 1, we'll grab the head, bring it all the way forward, and pick apart again, this. Okay, and then done, pick apart, grab this one, move it in place, Shift up, and then down. I'll pick these again, drag them off to the side. This will make it a little easier to set up the bones after. Pick apart, this one done, grab the ear, Shift up, down one. You can rotate it or scale it if you want. You can hit Alt-S to reset the scale. If you don't like the rotation, you can hit Alt-R to reset it to what it was. Maybe I'll have it stick up a bit more. Now I'll grab this one, shift down, push it back. Probably good where it is. Maybe rotate it back a bit more. Maybe not. Looks fine. Now we'll start with the legs first because the arms will go around the legs. So start with the left leg first. Shift down, Control, and then arrows. Actually, we'll do the whole left leg first. That way our layering is going to be correct. Shift down. And this one, we want it to go behind these. Shift down. Same with this. Shift down. Looks about right. I'm going to zoom in to look. Let's grab this head thing and put it in first. And the foot. Shift down, make sure it's behind, and then up until it's just over top of this one. Then we'll start on the shoulders, starting with the left shoulder first. And we'll grab the left forearm, his right forearm. We called it left forearm because it's on the left side. Normally when you're doing animation, I think the standard is you go by what would be their left. I actually labeled it wrong technically by normal standards. This would be considered his right arm. I guess it would depend on who you're working with and how they're used to doing it. We'll make sure this goes behind this leg, shift down, Control Z to undo, get that one up one, hold left click, arrow keys to position. Oh, and I forgot to do this hand. Shift up, we'll get this one to the right altitude, shift up, and then drag it back off. Actually, we'll drag that one off, leave that one on. This one will be standard. This one will be a swappable part. This is an overlapping smile, so it is not a swappable part. It's just a part that can be hidden or shown, and you can do animation blending that way. So we'll keep it off to the side too, just because we're going to be setting up bones. Afterwards, we'll have to move it back in. This will go over top of those. Then this, we'll click up and then down twice, just to make sure they're at the right layer. Same with this, up, up, down twice. And those will be swappable parts, so we don't have to worry about setting up bones for those. Okay, let's go to the bones editor. And I usually put the root bone somewhere in the hips. That's the one you start with. Connect it to the head. If you look in the top right hand corner, it says head, so you know you selected the right one. Then we want the rear head in an ear. And this sort of bluish purple triangle isn't necessary. You can left click to add it to show where the bones end and that you've finished that chain. Or you can just right click because it's not needed. It's just for show. But if you do want to add it, you can click on here and just do that. And we'll add this one to here too. Okay, we'll connect this to here. And this is going to be connected to here and to here, so that when the head moves, the eyes will move like it's a part of the head. So after we're done setting up the bones, we'll go back to move parts and we'll move these into place. The swappable parts, the hand and these two heads, you don't have to worry about moving those into place. So this is connected to that and as well to that. Now there's kind of a mess of things in here, so we'll do that after using the connection map. So we'll do this, go to the shoulder and to the wrist, then to the hand, and do the same root, shoulder, wrist, hand, root, thigh, calf, foot, root, other thigh, calf, and foot. Okay, and we'll go to connection map. We'll attach this head. We'll link it to these eyes. The eyes will move with the head now, and the shines of the eyes will move with that whites of the eye. We'll also connect the whites of the eye to each colored part of the eye. And once you're sure everything's connected and set up, you can click on Done. Go into animation and we'll set a key and we can start setting up the initial pose.